Let's take a look at the headlines across Nigerian newspapers now. Let's begin with the Punch newspaper. The Punch says subsidy protests, that's the hashtag subsidy protests. Banks, offices shut amid rallies. Labour demands 200,000 naira wage. Right? Banks, offices shut amid rallies. Labour demands 200,000 naira wage. Okay, that's what the Punch newspaper has. NLC, TUC leaders hold emergency NEC meeting today after a special meeting with Tinubu and National Assembly. And the federal government sues Labour leaders, says protests will be suspended. All right, how protesters broke National Assembly gates. All that you find on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Daily Trust is the next one we're going to now. Daily Trust newspapers. Talking about the nationwide protests, and Tinubu meets Labour as workers storm National Assembly government houses. Okay, Tinubu meets Labour as workers storm National Assembly government houses. All right, Port Harcourt Refinery will resume operation in December. That's the president. It was part of the commitment yesterday that was revealed. Now, we'll address your demands in 7 days, Senate tells Labour. And that was when Senator Aline Dume met with them yesterday on behalf of the Senate. Okay, court summons NLC over contempt, right? That's part of what we were discussing earlier. Now let's move to the Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper is talking about, is focusing on hardship. And it says Tinubu wades in as protests rock states in Abuja. Tinubu wades in as protests rock states and Abuja. All right, that's focusing on the hardships and everything that everyone is passing through. Labour may suspend action after meeting with the president. You know, he has other riders there. That's what you see on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. Now let's go to First News. First News is the aftermath of protests. Port Harcourt Refinery will begin production December. Tinubu is saying this. From the aftermath of the protest, Port Harcourt Refinery will begin production December. Right? President Tinubu is quoted here, and that was a fallout of the meeting with the Labour yesterday at the presidential villa. Kemi.
On the Nigerian News Direct, it says NLC TUC resolved to suspend protest. That's according to the presidency. That's what the Nigerian News Direct is saying as a fallout of the latest meeting between the presidency and the labor groups. Let's check out this Nigeria next. The lead story there is captioned "Fuel Subsidy, Protesting Workers Pull Down the Gate of the National Assembly in a bid to meet with lawmakers." We spoke on that earlier on the program. You get more details on this Nigeria. On Blueprint now, it is all about the fuel subsidy removal, the latest on this controversy that is with Labour meeting the president and resolving to stop further protests. Blueprint is quoting the president there in its feedback to the nation following that meeting with the Labour groups. On Daily Independent, federal government asked to reverse anti-poor policies as well as the price of fuel and the increased school fees. Of course, these are among the demands of Labour in their protest on Wednesday. On The Guardian is reporting on the president's latest ministerial list. It says cabinet size near 70 as President Tinubu ignores calls for lean government. That's on The Guardian. Finally, it's Business Day. Niger's nightmare threatens democracy in West Africa. Of course, this is a lingering matter involving the region and indeed the world. Business Day says Niger's nightmare threatens democracy in West Africa. Mike.
All right. The issues on the, you know, like we're saying earlier that this week has been very busy so far. If you look at what the First News, aftermath of protest, Port Harcourt Refinery will begin production December. They sent signals to Nigerians that, okay, something is in the offing. And some have said, of course, the labor, it was part of the successes of the labor's protest yesterday, like we're saying, putting pressure on government to come up with more details of some of the things and all of that. Of course, the fact that the president has said Port Harcourt Refinery will work or resume operation in December didn't mean that he's going to start working on the refinery. Work has been ongoing all the while, and when the Port Harcourt Refinery begins operations, I believe that's adding to the Dangote Refinery and some all other sources here and there, can create a platform where it could reduce the pressure on Nigerians regarding fuel, regarding the cost of this and cost of that, even though they've said that the fact that this product is going to be available does not necessarily mean that the cost is going to drastically come down. It's just the issue of marginal costs of transportation from wherever they bring it from outside the country into Nigeria. So those costs will be removed. But oil still remains a global product that is dollarized.
And when you also look at the fact that this is, a commodity, essential global commodity that is determined basically by market forces. So it remains to be seen. But then analysts are a bit divided as to what Nigerians should expect moving forward, looking at the state of our refineries at the moment. And, and all of that. So will it be cheaper moving forward, or should we just, expect, higher costs of fuel? That remains to be seen. And I guess more communication would be. But like you said, if this is something that is subject to forces that you might say are beyond the presidency.
OPEC ultimately decides, the quota system. Because
right,
all OPEC members... you have your limits.
Right.
You should act within.
Right.
This is the production quota for you, the production quota for you, this country, and all of that. Nigeria has our own, and so on. And also the market, available markets, they also determine, the flow of oil around the world. So the only advantage Nigeria is going to have is the constant availability. That's number one. You're going to find it because we produce it here, we're going to have it. But when it comes to the costs, like we're saying, that marginal cost, because if you're transporting crude oil or you're transporting refined oil from Belgium or from Namibia or from South Korea, for instance, or you're bringing from Brazil into Nigeria, of course, there's a cost of bringing it. But if we refine here now, then it means the only transport we're going to be paying for is transport from either Port Harcourt or transport from Akwa Ibom when the BUA refinery is on, or transport from Lagos, where the Dangote refinery is. But the problem is it's still a global product. We are not the only ones these refineries are going to serve or service, as the case may be. Other countries are also, booking to lift fuel or refined product from Dangote or from Port Harcourt or from the BUA when they come upstream. So these are some of the issues. Some experts have said the fact that we refine oil does not necessarily mean that the cost is going to drastically go down, because there are so many other forces around that shape the final cost of the petroleum product.
But it will give Nigerians, a better deal.
Yeah, of course.
If this refineries or if the refining of this commodity is done within the country, to give Nigerians a better deal. And that's where, Labour is also coming from, that the president didn't make any mention of that in his latest address on Monday. And so I guess that is also a low-hanging fruit that Labour can also run with, that they finally gotten a commitment from the president as to that. So we might as well, be monitoring what the federal government is doing regarding its promise to kickstart, work, progress on the Port Harcourt Refinery, which the president, according to Labour, says will, happen before the end of the year, by the end of the year. And also, Labour is saying it's not afraid of, whatever proceedings that the federal government may institute against it. Is even urging all representatives, all caucuses, all subsidiaries, of Labour groups to come out en masse, right? Affiliate groups, absolutely, to come out en masse to all the courts. That was quite interesting to me, because it gives a semblance that it's not perhaps one court that we will be seeing, Labour versus the federal government or vice versa. So we wait and see how that will be. And despite the affront on the country through the breaking down of the gate on Wednesday, we also saw that a representative from the Senate, a Senate leader, the person of Ali Ndume, was able, he granted them audience and he assured them, following the commitment of lawmakers, that they would also do their own part in monitoring how palliatives are disbursed nationwide. So they're saying, give us a week to, follow through on all that we've said we would do in our own contributions to the situation on ground. And in addition to a meeting within the Labour groups, there's also going to be a meeting between Labour and the National Assembly due to hold today. So, well, depending on where you stand, one could say that perhaps there was a varying degree of success. But then beyond all these promises, of course, Nigerians cannot wait for key deliverables. That is also, I like the word that you used earlier on, you need to put government on their toes, and Labour just has to...
on them.
Yes, so you just have to continue. We don't want to see, a one-off, everybody returns back to the status quo. Labour needs to continue engagement. Government also needs to continue communicating and showing that they indeed mean well for Nigerians.
Yeah. And besides the issues of Labour was the submission of the remaining list of ministerial nominees to the National Assembly by from the President, which was delivered by the Chief of Staff. And it's quite interesting to see that, the number of ministries might either be increased, or we're going to have the issues of minister and minister of state, assistant ministers, as the case may be. Because if we're going to go by the issue of number of the minister of person nominees that were screened yesterday, everything put together is about 47 now, which is a little above against the
28,
against the 41, 42 that we usually have. So it is either there are going to be more ministries, or there are going to be more ministers of state in the case, as the case may be. But we all wait to see how these things, of course, is the prerogative of the president. And in the breakdown, you see that the Northwest has the highest number of nominees, having 10, nominees. And then the Southwest has about, I think, 9 or so. And then the Northeast has 8. And the North Central has 7. And then the Southeast had 5. They're the ones with the least number and all of that. But the constitutional requirement of the fact that at least a minister must come from each of the states has been met, and that's it.
And we also see more former governors,
more former governors, exactly.
In the list, going to about 9 or so. Interesting, that the total number 47 is, eyebrows were raised, and understandably so, especially within the calls for lean government. But, we've heard analyst after analyst say that some things just need to be done. Yes, there is need for government to be lean in its spendings, to be very wise in its spendings, but it doesn't mean that the ministries have to reduce. So we need to understand that. But perhaps it will also be a test on the powers of the National Assembly now. So now that they have 47 names, and they say that despite the fact that some Nigerians may have issues with the nominees bowing and going, some of them not having to answer any questions, it doesn't mean that it's uhuru for them. It doesn't mean that they've been cleared. So we wait to see what the lawmakers will have to do or can do with this number. Is it within their powers to stop some from going any further? Is it within their powers to, confirm or, otherwise with some nominees on the standpoint or on the issue of the number that the president submitted? That would be quite interesting to see if their powers reach that point. But of course, we also wait to see how they would all fare in the end. The Senate is going to resume the screening on Friday. They will reconvene on Friday. Mr. Senate President didn't say exactly whether the screening will commence or will continue on Friday.
In fact, he mentioned 11 a.m.
11 a.m. on 11
a.m. on Friday.
So it's really interesting. The former governors, now about 9 of them, and of course we have members from the opposition parties. People are still talking about that. The dust is yet to settle, especially when they are now given portfolios and the FEC convenes fully, and then we wait to see how they will all blend with the system and hopefully add value to the administration, and most importantly, give fillip to all the president's, plans and policies so far. It's important that these ministers start work and take the work further.
All right. Well, we'll leave it here now. The point there is, it is always a known fact that a presidential system of government is expensive. So if you're adopting that, have it at the back of your mind that you're going to spend money. It is always in parliamentary that we have a fusion of the legislature and the executive where, okay, you don't spend extra monies for people who are ministers, from the cabinet and so on. But let's leave it here.